A very good afternoon to everybody and welcome to this very special Sunday live stream. It is the release of the 2025 summer forecast for Europe as well as the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season forecast as well. A very warm welcome and thanks for tuning in to today's stream. We'll do the usual stuff. We'll have a little bit of chit chat back and forward on the live chat. Paul James is the first person tuning in. Good afternoon to Paul, and also thank you for moderating on this special live today, Paul. I do greatly appreciate your ongoing kind support, my friend. I hope yourself and Steffi are keeping well. Certainly it is a blustery old day out there. Area of low pressure, fairly deep for late May, is providing quite a different feel overall across the majority of the UK and Ireland. Compared to this time last week, where we're still talking about the warm sunshine. If you're along the east coast, I suppose you were experiencing a little bit of the har and the chilly feel of the North Sea. But generally speaking, we are almost back to business as usual once again. Weeks after weeks of fine, dry, settled conditions. We're in low pressure once again. We've got the wind, the rain, the longer spells of rain, the embedded thunderstorms, and so on and so forth. The question is going to be, how long does this last before we maybe revert back to something a little bit more settled? We will have a quick look at the next week to 2 week period. Then we will look into the overall summer forecast. So I'll kind of allow people to join in, get the chat going, and then we will get into the meat and bones of the summer forecast itself. I have spent a lot of time trying to think through all the different factors that go into building a seasonal forecast. Is probably the most difficult of the seasonal forecast to do. We've got a little bit less in the way of forcing, less contrast, less teleconnection influences to an extent as well compared to the winter season, so it can be a tricky forecast. Last year played out reasonably well, I would say, and through the first half of the winter season it played out pretty well overall as well. So generally speaking, over the last 12 to 18 months, I think the ideas have been reasonably good. The accuracy has been reasonably good in recent times, so it's going to be interesting to see how this summer forecast pans out. But a very good afternoon to Braemar, Ballard, D-side and Donside weather. Hello, me and Lee on the way back from Altnahara. 2 times new 4G weather stations. Beautiful part of the country. Yourself and Lee have been travelling through. So I'm pretty jealous, Chris, I must admit. I hope both of you have a safe journey back to your homes once again, and thank you for tuning in, my friend. We've also got Lindsay tuning in from next door. Thanks for Lindsay's moderating of today's stream as well. We've got Paul Farwell. Good afternoon, Mark. Windy all day in Swindon, rain last night. We've certainly had some fairly heavy rainfall here as well, Paul, especially during the overnight period. Very heavy, persistent rain. And then through the course of today, blustery showers has been the name of the game. In the sunshine, feeling fairly decent, I must admit. It's that time of the year when you've got the warmth of the sun, obviously. But when the showers blow through, it really does take a little bit of a sting off those temperatures for sure. So, we have currently 14 on the live chat today. Do me a favour, hit that like button if you're enjoying the content. Lets myself and YouTube know that you're enjoying what you're seeing here in Marfogan Weather on YouTube. Working very hard. Content more or less now back to 7 days a week. There was a global weather report yesterday, and then obviously Monday to Friday there is the European outlooks as well. So continuing to strive to provide unique, unbiased, unhyped content here on this channel. Click on marfoganweather.com, just Google it, and you can see the written content that is freely available as well. So there is no paywall to any of this content. It is completely free, doesn't cost you a single penny, but your subscription, your view, your comment is all very, very much appreciated. It continues to drive me on to deliver this free service to each and every one of you. Good afternoon to David Vogan, tuning in from Kirkintilloch. Very showery here in Kirkintilloch, very blustery. Notice temperatures down to 10 Celsius when I was in the car this afternoon earlier. Yes, it certainly has been pretty unsettled across the board, especially across more northern areas. We've seen those showers rattling through at a pretty good clip. So, yeah, I hope you're well down in Kirky, Dad, and I hope the service went well this morning. I believe there was a fairly decent turnout of around 30 folks, I think it was. So, yes, let's have a very quick snippet at the next few days here. This was a slightly unplanned, but I wanted to just kind of have a quick look at the latest of the CFS model with regards to the upcoming 7-day period, because it looks as if we have got a bit of a conga line of low pressure systems coming in off the Atlantic here. So we're going to continue with this more disruptive, unsettled weather pattern as opposed to the dominant high pressure that we've become so used to in recent times. So let's have a quick look at the European view. This is the upcoming 7 days. So we've got this classic return of the westerlies, low pressure up towards Iceland, strong high pressure down towards Iberia. We've got the winds coming in off the Atlantic between the competing pressure systems here, and therefore we've got not surprisingly unsettled conditions, meaning we've got wetter than average weather across the majority of the UK and Ireland, with the exceptions of the very far south. It's closer to average, then firmly drier than average if you notice across Iberia and France. When you've got the strong high to the south in this normal position that we normally would see it, lower pressure to the north, you've got wettest across the UK and Ireland, driest across Iberia. That's been the opposite of what we've seen the majority of this spring, it has to be said. And then looking at the temperatures, then you can see off the CFSV2 model, it's indicating cooler north and drier south, but also not drier, but actually warmer than average. So that's what I meant to say. So you can see here, slightly cooler across the north, warmer across the bulk of England, Wales, and Ireland here. This is an interesting temperature profile because, yeah, summer season, is that something that we could become a little bit more familiar with, this type of setup? We shall wait and see. I will reveal all in just a second. And by the way, instead of going through all the ideas, the thoughts, the technical kind of explanation, I'm going to cut to the chase. I'm going to give you the verdict right away. I'm going to talk about the month-by-month breakdown, and then I will go into a little bit more of the technical stuff. I know people like my dad and others perhaps don't understand a lot of the things that I'm discussing, so therefore I'm going to try and deliver the key points first. Then we will go into a little bit more technical, a little bit more explanation as to where I'm getting these ideas from. So looking at the back to the 500 millibar off the CFSV2, you can see here week 2, there's the high building a little bit more to the north, therefore pushing the low to the north. And yes, is this an indication of what June could be, could have ahead of us? That is something that I'm very much looking towards in quite a bit of detail. So in terms of the high building north, you would expect to see less in the way of rainfall as we move into the month of June. Maybe a little bit of a slow start, but nevertheless, you can see here that we go drier than average according to CFSV2, 8th through the 15th of June. In terms of temperatures, you can see here that we are looking cool to the north. Week 1, warmer further south. Into week 2, we're replacing everything with warmer than average, and then week 3, firmly warmer than average. Let's have a quick look at what the GFS ensemble is looking like for the upcoming period off the 500 millibars. You can see a decent chunk of Europe here is actually below average. But let's have a look at the 500s. This is the 5-day increments. So the upcoming 5 days, very classic westerly flow, low to the north, high to the south. You can see here as we play through this loop, similar to the CFSV2, it's indicating the high builds further north. Looking at precipitation, and you can see here that we have got the upcoming 7 days, wetter than average for the majority, with the exception to the far south of the UK, drier France into Spain and Portugal. Play through this loop. You can see here that we start to turn drier than average towards the end of week 1 into week 2 of June. And finally, temperatures, the anomalies. Upcoming 5 days is below the normal to the north, warmer than normal to the south. Play through this loop. You can see here, models are in pretty good agreement. It's going from cooler than average to warmer than average. Let's have another quick look at the live chat. Then we'll get into the summer forecast. We'll also talk about the prediction for the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season as well. Now, the written version of the forecast for the tropics is actually going to be released this upcoming work week. So it's not actually been written up, but I'm going to be telling you what the ideas are. Then there will be a written version for you to check out once we get in through the course of this week. 22 concurrent viewers at the moment here. Build the numbers, share the content with people that you think would be interested. I would greatly appreciate that. To try and spread the word of what's going on here at the moment on today's live. Very showery, blustery, notice temperature. All right, okay. So I'm just repeating my dad's comment from earlier. James Smith, good afternoon to James. Heavy showers, sunny spells, and very blustery here in Bally. James Duff in Ireland. Very good afternoon to you, James. Thanks for tuning in, my friend, and I hope you are well wherever you are. So let's get into it then. There's no point in me waffling on any longer. So this, by the way, is the overall thinking from a synoptic point of view through the next couple of months here, the next 3 months, in fact. We've got this is what I envision in terms of the overall setup. Lower pressure towards the northwest, so cooler, wetter, somewhat more blustery across more north and northwestern areas of the UK. Warmer, drier across the heart of central and western mainland Europe. So in some aspects, you could slightly push that black line a little bit further north than what I've created here. There is going to be fluctuations between the high over Europe, the low up towards Iceland here. Generally speaking, that is what I kind of think in the overall grand scheme of things. That's what I think is potentially going to take place. So lower pressure towards Iceland, higher pressure over mainland Europe. Remember, we've got very dry central areas of Europe here at the moment, and a lot of the modelling, given all the various things that are taking place, SSTs, so the sea surface temperatures, anomalies, and the neutral ENSO, which is we've neither got an El Nino nor a La Nina this summer, so we don't have as much of a signal from the Pacific. But generally speaking, the verdict for this upcoming summer, the key points, let's get to the key points first. Warmer, drier spells compared to last year. So we obviously had about 94% of the average UK rainfall June through August last summer. The chance of hot and dry spells in each of the 3 summer months is more likely this year. So in other words, we could see hot spells, we could see hot and dry spells, June, July, and August this year, as opposed to the cooler, more unsettled dominance that we've seen last summer. In terms of potentially turning more unsettled through the mid and late season, so I think we're likely to become much more volatile, much more mixed, the deeper you go into the season. So in other words, July into August, I think we're going to start to see much more fluctuation, and that could be down to what's going on within the tropical Atlantic and whatnot. Other factors to take into consideration as well. But long, hot, dry summer is likely for much of Central and Mediterranean Europe. Wetter potentially for the Balkan region and southeastern Europe. Coolest, wettest Iceland, northwest UK and Ireland, and drier the further south and east you go. Overall, I think we're going to see a warmer than normal summer for much of Europe, except potentially the northwest. So perhaps Scotland, Northern Ireland, up towards Iceland, we may see average, possibly even slightly below average temperatures. And I do think that we are going to see wetter than normal Iceland, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northwest Republic of Ireland, Southern Norway, Sweden, and Southeastern Europe. Drier than normal for much of Central and Western Europe, including much of England and Wales and the Southeastern Republic of Ireland. So wetter than average possibly for the northwest of the Republic, drier than average for the southeast of the Republic of Ireland. That is what I think is possible overall. Now, this is me talking about when you combine June through August as a whole, this is the overall outcome that I think we may get to. In terms of the overall thinking then, so visualize this, cooler and wetter the further northwest you go over the UK and Ireland, including Iceland. The warmer and drier you get, the further south and east you go over the UK as well as Ireland. And then particularly so, potentially a long, hot, drought summer for central areas of Europe, including possibly France, possibly including the Low Countries, and maybe even slightly including the south and southeast of the British Isles as well. We may start to see a prolonged period of drier, sunnier, and warmer. So in my opinion, when looking at past dry springs, we've obviously seen a very dry spring. We've seen a warmer than average spring as well. There's no definitive evidence supporting either a hot, dry or a cool, wet summer based on the spring that we've just seen. We could go either way. We could actually get a 2007 summer, 2012. They were washout summers. They were very disappointing summers. They are part of the analog package for this spring, by the way. But I don't necessarily think we're going to go to that level. I also don't think we're going to lean to 2018, 1990, 1959. These are long, hot, dry summers. Also part of the analog package for the spring that we're about to end, a week or so left of the spring season. I think we're going to get a bit of in between. I think we're leaning more towards warmer, drier the further south you go, cooler, the wetter, the further north and northwest you go. It's a bit of a guess. However, combining the record warm SSTAs, or sea surface temperature anomalies, particularly just west of Europe, the dry ground widely, the neutral ENSO, and likely slightly busier than normal Atlantic hurricane season, it points to a highly volatile, varied, and potentially extreme summer of weather swings back and forth between hot, cool, dry, and wet. I think we've got very warm water surrounding the UK and Ireland, so we could have more fuel for thunderstorm production, a lot more energy within the atmosphere that could deliver some flash floods. We've seen that in 2015, we've seen that in 2020. Those are the 2 years that really stick out in my mind, 2015 and 2020. The unusually warm surrounding waters compared to average and the dry ground could support more notable heat surges, Spanish plumes, but also a recipe for serious flood events also, especially in the form of thunderstorm activity. A couple of lengthy hot and dry spells is expected, along with equally low pressure dominance. The lean towards low northwest, high southeast on the whole, with fluctuation of both. So we are going to see heat even in the Northern Ireland, even in the Scotland, potentially even in the parts of Iceland and southern Scandinavia as well. We are going to get hotter spells and even drier spells than what we've seen last summer. That's the overall thinking. There's going to be a lot of fluctuation back and forth, I think, especially more across central and northern areas of the UK. I think we're always leaning that bit more settled and drier across the southeast and UK. You're going to get that kind of on repeat slightly, and I do apologise if I am repeating myself. So there's past evidence suggesting that a drought summer for a large swathe of continental Europe is possible extending into England. With that early stratospheric warming, that early final stratospheric warming that we've seen taking place, there are some analogues, I'll show you that in a second, that supports drought into France, into the Low Countries, into the central portions of Europe, and also a lot of hot temperatures as well. So, yes, and then let me just see here. With cooler eastern tropical Atlantic My hunch is the Azores high could be stronger than normal through the first half of summer. So a bit of a front-loaded summer is possible. Then a bit of a decrease in pressure as we go through mid and late summer. We might have more in the way of low pressure, but also the opportunity for heat surges. We could see the tropical Atlantic becoming a bit more active, and therefore that has to get taken into consideration as well. So, bit of a front-loaded summer is possible. The Azores high could be stronger than normal through the first half of summer in particular, with frequent northward extension in the month of June. At the peak of this, and this is important, at the peak of this summer, the heat, I think 38 to 40, locally 42 is possible for France, including the north of France. So Paris area, areas in the north of France, we could see 40 Celsius this summer, given how dry it's been, given how there's pretty decent model agreement of higher pressure over Europe, lower pressure towards Iceland. We could see 34 to 36 Celsius in the southeast of England, 28 to 30 widely across England and Wales and the Low Countries, possibly a 30, 31 in the Scottish borders, for example. That is the level of warmth that I think we could potentially achieve this upcoming summer season. So that's me talking about the peak of the summer heat this year. We could see a 40, 42 locally over parts of northern France, 34 to 36 in England, as well as temperatures widely 28 to 30 across England and Wales and the Low Countries, possibly a 30, 31 in the Scottish borders. Let's take a month by month breakdown of what I'm thinking, and obviously these month by months have to get taken with a pinch of salt. There is absolutely no way you can remotely predict the type of high pressure, low pressure, and when that's going to take place for a given month when you're talking weeks and weeks in advance. So this is a rough idea of what I think is possible during the month of June, July, and August specifically. So let's break it down. Month of June, potentially the driest of the 3-month period with a lengthy spell of high pressure. So remember what I just showed you, GFS, the CFSV2, indicating higher pressure becoming more established as we head out of week 1 into week 2 of June. I think it may anchor in place, and part of that could be what's going on within the tropics, the Manjulian Oscillation. So above average temperatures and below average rainfall for much of Western and Central Europe, including the UK and Ireland. So yes, I've talked about lower pressure and cooler conditions northwest of the UK up towards Iceland. We may get a decent spell of hot, dry weather, or at least warm weather anyway, through the heart of June. For all of the UK as well as Ireland here, always a chance of frontal systems edging into the northwest, for example. We could see back and forth. So the month could commence unsettled, so we may start the month of June and meteorological summer on a slightly unsettled note, but a change to more settled heading towards June 10th, with a peak of the dry, warm or hot spell between the 10th and the 20th of June before a return to lower pressure late month. So I think we may revert back to lower pressure, a bit more unsettled towards the end of June. So in other words, to break down the month of June, near average rain, Scotland, Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, average to below average rainfall for England and Wales. Remember, you can check this out at your leisure. It's freely available in Marfogan Weather. I've left a link in the live chat, and also there will be a link in today's video as well. Just simply Google marfoganweather.com and you'll get it at the top of the website. Looking at the month of July then, another somewhat mixed month, possibly and more likely to be more mixed as opposed to June will be. I think June may be potentially the most settled of the summer months for the UK and Ireland as a whole. So with back and forth pressure swings containing decent summer heat, so it's by no means a washout in July. I don't expect that to be the case. With a lot of warmer than average fuel surrounding the seas, we could increase the thunderstorm activity during the month of July. Those could be lively with frequent lightning, gusty winds, hailstorms and flash flooding an issue, especially to the end of a week to 10-day hot spell. So we may get a build-up of warmth, Spanish plume, homegrown heat if you get a high bang slap over the UK and Ireland. But you get that high to the east, you get that low to the west. You could draw up something hotter from Africa. It's towards the end of these kind of hot spells, these breakdowns, you can get some very lively, thundery weather as the heat gets drawn out of the atmosphere with lower pressure and whatnot. So there is a possibility of some pretty thundery conditions, warm, juicy environment during the month of July. That's what I expect. Cooler, wetter and windier for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but not without some warm to hot days. So in other words, I think we are going to lean more with the lower pressure towards the northwest of the UK and Ireland. Frontal systems riding around the top of an area of high pressure centred over perhaps France and the near continent. We could see more unsettled and less warm across the northwest, Scotland, Northern Ireland, but we are also going to see some hot days thrown in there as well. Just a lot of mixed weather. I think the further north and west you go, the further south and east you go, the drier and more settled it's going to be. Average to slightly above average rain for much of the UK and Ireland, wettest towards the northwest. So I'll repeat that. July, average to slightly above average rainfall for much of the UK and Ireland, wettest being in the northwest. Maximum temperatures could see a 32 to 34 for England and Wales, 27 to 29, possibly a 30 for Scotland, Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. Did I say the maximum temperatures for June for the UK? I don't know if I did. So in other words, 31 to 33 for England. This is June, by the way. 28 to 30 in Wales, 28 to 30 in Scotland, and 27, 28 possible for Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. So I'm kind of giving you a rough guess, a rough estimate on the maximum temperatures I think we could see during each and every month. Let's go to August then. So depending on the MJO, the position and the strength and tropical activity in the Atlantic, we could see a bit of everything in the month of August with major heat spells and or a lengthy hot dry spell due to recurving tropical cyclones reinforcing the high over Europe, so you can get that those tropical energy, the systems that move northwards around the area of high pressure over the mid-Atlantic. As this heat energy gets lifted north, it can boost high pressure domes over western areas of Europe. That has to get taken into consideration. Some of the most recent hot spells in August has been in part helped by the tropics and energy lifting out of the tropics. This boosted high pressure over our part of the world. So we could see a bit of everything, a bit of a mixed bag, major heat spells or a lengthy hot and dry spell due to, like I say, recurving tropical systems reinforcing the high over Europe, but also some lows generating unseasonably cool, wet and windy days. So we could actually see a real mixture of weather in the month of August, hot and dry, cool and wet. The timing of the high versus low is impossible to say, but highly variable month is possible. So that's the month of August. In terms of the average rainfall, average to below average for England and Wales. So average to below average rainfall for England and Wales, and the Southern Republic of Ireland. Average to above average rainfall, Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern Republic of Ireland here. Maximum temperatures, well, we could actually see the hottest of the entire summer in the month of August. Max temps 34 to 36 in the southeast. That's pretty hot weather. We could see in the southeast and the near continent 29 Scotland, 28 Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland here. So that's your month by month breakdown in terms of rainfall average, temperature average, and also the maximum temperature potential. That is what I'm thinking here. So good afternoon to Frog's Legs Matthew, Shelley Summer, and also our other moderator, Sink Splint. Good afternoon to you, my friend. Hope you are well. Did I say hello to Turbo Stream? I might not have. Craigie Boy as well, tune in. I've got Adam Blunston, and I've mentioned the rest so far. I hope I've not missed anybody out. Are you enjoying today's special summer forecast, Atlantic Hurricane Season Forecast live stream? If you are, hit that like button. It lets myself and YouTube know that you're enjoying the content here on the channel. There has been a tremendous amount of work put into this. At the end of the day, Mother Nature could blow this completely out of the water. it might be a very different outcome. So it's I guess there's a lot of study being put into it. There is a lot of reasoning behind why I think this could be a potential summer forecast and reality. We will wait and see here. We'll wait and see. Richard Trott, good afternoon to you, my friend. Hi all. Just in from the garden, trying to tidy, but the 40 mile per hour gust is not helping. I hope you are well. I hope your family is well, Richard, as well. Thank you, my friend, for tuning in, and I hope you're doing okay. So let me see here, Mark. What happened to we reach the 40-degree UK if possible? You never know, Adam. You never know, my friend. But I'm going to go with kind of mid-30s, I think, in terms of a potential maximum for the summer this year. How freakish that 40 is, well, only the next few years will tell the story whether we can achieve that once again. It's only happened to once so far. You know, it's quite possible we may get to it again, whether it be this summer or not. I'm not too sure here. TurboStream saying June here in Birmingham for the last few years has seen 30 most years. The July seemed to be go cooler, and August are variable. That is a pretty good assessment, actually. TurboStream. I think that's been the case for quite a large swathe of the UK. August actually recently haven't been too bad. We've had some wet ones. We've had some relatively cool ones as well, but there's been quite a lot of variability, actually, especially in the month of August. It can be a very difficult month to pinpoint, and quite often I've found the seasonal outlook, whether it be winter or summer, has actually become less accurate as we go towards the end of the season. August have stung me in the past. Months of February has stung me as well, it has to be said. Richard, great tuning. Hi, Mark. I think you're on the right track this summer. Wind in Devon today. So yes, only time will tell. Only time will tell, Richard, whether this holds true or not. Do you want to know a little bit about the background to the ideas that I've produced? Let's get into it then. So I hope for folks that are perhaps not as into the technical stuff, I hope that's given you a bit of a summary. Hopefully it's been reasonably brief, not too long-winded with regards to the overall idea. It's a highly variable summer. We're going to have more hotter spells, potentially dry spells this upcoming summer compared to last year. We could see some real heat this summer. And the question mark is, how warm is it going to be? That is going to be interesting to find out going forward. So let's get to it. Let's have a quick look, and I'll just say this very briefly. Welcome to the 15th annual UK and Europe summer forecast. So summer forecast started back in 2010. As always, when compiling this forecast for the upcoming June through August period, there are multiple factors which are taken into consideration. They include the past winter pattern, type of spring just observed, as well as the current ENSO state. Global and regional SSTs, or sea surface temperature anomalies, also get taken into consideration. A quick recap in terms of summer 2024. Following a warm, wet spring last year, it was a fairly mixed summer overall and turned out slightly cooler than normal. In fact, it was actually the coolest since 2015. It was slightly drier than the 91 to 2020 average, with about 94%. So it's close to the average in terms of rainfall for the UK last year. Like I say, it was the coolest since 2015, but slightly warmer and drier for England and Wales. And it was the second half of the summer which became more settled and warmer compared to the first half. So the synoptic, so that's the opposite in terms of what took place last year versus what the forecast is for this year. I'm going for a more settled first half, more dynamic, more volatile, more fluctuating mid to late summer period here. So in terms of the synoptics anyway, basically it says, deep trough extending from Greenland to Scandinavia, including the northern UK with slightly above average heights, France and Iberia, which led to cooler, wetter north, warmer, drier south. So this is the synoptic chart for last summer. Lots of low pressure up towards southern Greenland and Iceland, extending into the northern UK, and essentially we had those low heights cover pretty much all of the UK and Ireland, hence why we had a cooler than average summer and close to average, marginally below average in terms of rainfall. This is how the summer temperature looked according to the Met Office. We had a cooler than average signal across southwestern Scotland, West Highlands, western Northern Ireland, and even central portions of Wales. England was largely average. Southern and eastern Scotland was largely average as well. In terms of away from the UK, France, and Low Countries and Scandinavia, the rest of Europe was warmer than average for the summer season. So this was the summer temperature anomalies according to CDAS. Average to below average UK and Ireland. Average to below average across much of northern France, even the Low Countries as well. Summer is usually the most difficult to predict due to less contrast and forcing as well as the teleconnection indicators. This is worsened. So what we've went by over years and decades gone by has been contrast in warm versus cold water temperatures, etc., etc. But it's become more difficult, especially since 2015. The Atlantic has become warmer. The global net ocean temperatures become warmer as well. And generally, the land, ocean, and atmosphere has generally been warming up over the last decade or so as well. So that makes it a little bit more difficult to pinpoint, the various indicators that we've used in the past to make a forecast. So generally, the Atlantic has peaked in terms of temperature, freakishly warm, especially 2022 into 23. We've seen a little bit of a change in the water temperature profile in the Atlantic this year compared to last year. So while we can use past years as a guide, they become less useful with a more uniform, warmer land, ocean, and atmosphere. But there are aspects to take into consideration so this is me explaining a little bit about where I'm getting the ideas from, the forecast ideas and whatnot. So number one, how wet or dry, how warm or cold was the spring season? That's one thing that we look at. Where are the less warm or cool waters positioned within the Atlantic? That can have influence on temperature and also whether you've got lower pressure or higher pressure over a given area. Sometimes the highs and the lows are attracted to pockets of warmer versus colder than the average water temperatures. Tropical cyclone activity, especially mid to late summer, would tend to have less activity early in the hurricane season. As the summer goes on, the Atlantic tropics warms up more, the atmospheric environment becomes more conducive. Therefore, you increase the tropical cyclone activity, strength, numbers. They build as the season goes on, and that can have a ripple effect on the pressure pattern mid to high latitudes. So that's another aspect. The ENSO, or the El Nino Southern Oscillation Index, and the transition from warm to cold. We're actually transitioning from a weak La Nina into a neutral state. We're not going to see either La Nina or El Nino during the 2025 summer. Spring 2025, opposite of 2024. In terms of rainfall, it is very different to last year. So the spring rainfall and associated pattern can be important when it comes to summer temperature and pressure. Spring 2025 will go down as one of the warmest, driest for Central and Northwestern Europe, including both the UK and Ireland, despite an unsettled end to May and the season overall. So spring is ending cooler and unsettled, but generally speaking, this will be a top 5 warmest, driest spring on record for the UK as well as Ireland, and probably a good chunk of Central Europe as well. While this, like last spring, will go down as one of the warmest, it's opposite in terms of the rainfall, thanks to an opposite 500 millibar pattern here. So this is graphics that were sent in to me by our good friend Richard Trop, the 500 millibar geopotential heights. This is last year versus this year. And if we blow this up just a little bit for you to see, you can see here that we've got a low trapped underneath high pressure during the March 1st through May 14th. We obviously, it's missing the second half of May, but the overall idea is pretty much the case. We had a low centre just to the west of the UK and Ireland, extending into the British Isles and the Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland. That had led to yes, it was warm, but it was a very wet spring. In fact, it was the sixth wettest spring last year on record for the UK. Looking at rainfall for the spring last year, most of the UK and Ireland seen wetter than average. Now, I don't have the Republic, unfortunately, here. The only place that was drier than average last spring was Western and Northern Scotland and the Outer Hebrides here. This is this spring, and you can see here that we've almost got the opposite. We've shifted the core of the low down towards the Azores and Iberia, area of high pressure, bang slap over the North Sea, extending east and west over Europe and out towards the Atlantic and Iceland. So this has been leading to that warm and very dry spring that we have built up this year. Massive thank you, by the way, to Richard Trott for sending me these graphics. Let me just refresh this page because it looks as if some of the images haven't loaded up, and I certainly hope they will do to get my point across. Let me just go back a little bit. What time are we on, by the way? We're in chord 5. Need to rattle on. So you obviously have been told now the general situation here. This is the rainfall, by the way, for March and April this year. So that's last year. You can see here largely wet than average, very wet in many areas of the British Isles last year, very dry compared to average this year. And I've given you the reasons why the ridge and trough position is basically flipped on its head over western areas of Europe. So we've obviously seen, with all the rain last spring, decent soil moisture, less in the way of drought, central areas of Europe, UK and Ireland. This is this year. You can see a very different story. Building dry conditions across. I'm not wanting to use the word drought as such because you need to be careful with that. But generally, much of Europe here, northern areas of Europe, including the British Isles and good chunks of Ireland and Northern Ireland, we're running a deficit in terms of moisture within the ground. What's important about rainfall can be this, that it can lead to warmer than average feedback from ground to atmosphere. So high soil moisture content can lead to lower daytime. So this is wetter than average, can lead to lower temperatures during the daytime, but also warmer temperatures by nighttime when you increase the moisture within the atmosphere. As a result of some of the energy from the sun converted into evaporation. When you've got drier ground, you've got less moisture getting evaporated out of the ground, so therefore a lot of the incoming solar radiation goes directly into heating the air as opposed to evaporating any moisture coming out of the ground. So that is the reason why we can see hotter temperatures during the daytime when you've got a drier overall environment here. We've actually seen some cool nights due to that dry ground as well, by the way. So albeit we've had warm days, we've also had cool nights during the month of May, which has been quite interesting. So I don't believe, this is talking about last summer, I don't believe it's a coincidence that we had a cooler first half of the summer followed by a warmer second half of the summer as the pattern became less wet during the summer last year. There's other aspects as well, including high latitude block and troughs trapped underneath. So these are a list of notable dry springs since the year 2000, 03, 07, 2011, 2015, 2017, 2018, 2020, and the last drought summer for the UK was the infamous summer of 2022. UK top 10 warmest springs in the following summer. Listen, you can have a look at that at your leisure. I'm not going to go through that because I'm wanting to keep this within an hour, and it's obviously pretty heavy going for both myself and also for you, the listener. Wet to dry, connection with the Enso. So again, I'm going to skirt through this very quickly. Enso, little relationship, I think, between wet with El Nino, dry with La Nina. And albeit we've got greater influence of La Nina and El Nino the closer you are to the source region of the East and Central Pacific. So in other words, the Americas, Africa and Australasia have more influence from Enso as opposed to western areas of Europe, which is much further away. It's the same in a sense with the Manjulan Oscillation. The further away from the source region you are, the less influence it has. But I do believe there is an influence there. Very briefly, El Nino began during the summer of 2023, which was a warm and wet summer. Fall and winter 2023-24 was also wet, followed by a wet spring. So El Nino, I think, leads to an overall wetter pattern as a whole. Then came La Nina, which began in the summer and autumn of 2024, a slightly below average summer for rainfall in 2024. It was followed by a drier winter 2024-25, followed by a very dry spring this year as well. So I think we had wetter during the El Nino, we have had drier during the La Nina period. You can let me know in the comments what you think of that overall idea. So in terms of ENSO, we're in a neutral this year. We're neither El Nino nor La Nina. Again, I'll skip right through this here. North Atlantic, record warm SSTAs, or sea surface temperature anomalies. I'm not talking about surface temperatures. I'm talking about compared to average. We're at record levels to the west of the UK and Ireland. So very warm waters in the northeast Atlantic surrounding the UK. We've got slightly below average central and western North Atlantic, and also we've got less heat content in the subtropical and tropical Atlantic. It's different last year where we had, so this is the SSTs for the 7th of May 2025. The core of the warmest waters is around the UK. We've actually got below average water temperatures thanks to low pressure in the area. Much of the spring we've seen upwelling, so waters have not been as warm down towards the Canaries and the Azores and even Cape Verde compared to last year. It was the opposite last year, where you've seen the warmest waters. We had a cool pocket to the southwest of Ireland. We had the warmest waters, Azores to Iberia, and south towards the Canaries and Cape Verde, into the heart of the tropical Atlantic. So less warm eastern tropical Atlantic compared to this year. That may be important in terms of the tropics. So very warm waters compared to average. We're talking 5 Celsius above average. It's the warmest in recorded history for the northwest of Europe. This is according to Met Forecast, by the way. So this configuration of the SSTAs could support additional high pressure feedback when combining with dry soils. However, one cannot rule out an eventual flip to lower heights, and if so, greater chance of seeing flooding rainfall and heavy rainfall. Other years with similar SSTs, warm surrounding the UK, cooler central North Atlantic, combined with ENSO neutral 2020. So remember I mentioned similarities. I think this year compared to 2020, which was very, very varied. We had hot spells, cool days, wet days, dry days. We had a bit of everything thrown in for good measure. Warmer around the Azores, it was, in terms of sea surface temperatures. 2017, another very varied summer. Cooler in the central North Atlantic compared to this year. 2005 and 2002 have some slight similarities as well. So this is comparing the sea surface temperature profile within the North Atlantic. Similarities to 2020, 17, 05 and 02. The relevance of an early final stratospheric warming, which took place in early March. Primary relevance to an unusually early warming may be the unusual persistence of high pressure during the springtime, resulting in one of the driest springs for the UK, Ireland and perhaps much of Europe. It's difficult to say whether the early final warming has any relevance into the summer, but there could be evidence supporting a drought summer for parts of Europe, especially France and Germany. And this is a tweet here by World Climate Service talking about this year saw the second earliest warming of the Northern Hemisphere stratospheric polar vortex. An intriguing aspect, so again, you can check this out, intriguing aspect of the summer forecast for Europe is that the similar past years show, so basically similar years in terms of SSTs and also that early stratospheric warming, there is similarity connecting a prolonged dry signal for France. So that is something that is quite interesting here. So again, you can click on that on the article and look at that in a bit more detail. Now, the role of the Mann-Julian oscillation is highly speculative, especially for Northern Europe, for example. You can again check that out at your leisure. I'm not going to read that for word because it's just a little bit too long-winded for you. But I do want you to check that out. This, by the way, is a representation of the CFSV2 for in terms of the June through August period, where the rising motion is, where the sinking motion is projected by the model for the entire June through August period. So it looks as if East Asia, between Australia and East Asia and the West Pacific, looks as if the greatest concentration of rising motion within the atmosphere is West Pacific into the maritime continent here. So that's a bit of a phase 4, 5, 6, and 7 of the Magellan Oscillation. We've got more sinking over Western North America and also the Eastern Atlantic Basin. So the type of Atlantic hurricane season could prove quite important. The reasons why that is the case is quite reasonably straightforward. While a busy Atlantic, on the face of it, may not mean a whole lot to the European pattern, the type of pressure pattern, so in other words, the Bermuda Azores high, the strength of that and the position could be especially important. For example, if we see more storms or hurricanes lifting north into the middle latitudes, that can boost both higher pressure and lower pressure over the North Atlantic. So a warmer west main development region, so in other words, the Western Atlantic, the tropical Atlantic, the Caribbean, and the Gulf of Mexico, could support more favorability for storm development and strengthening. But the eastern side of the tropical Atlantic is a lot cooler than this time last year. It's still above. It's still the net temperature is still warmer than average, but we've got a cooler east, warmer west than last year. So in other words, this may feed back to a stronger Azores high earlier in the summer season. So the ENSO is less influence on whether it's a busier or quieter season this year because of the neutral. But a warmer Atlantic overall leans to a slightly busier overall Atlantic season. But where the Mid-Atlantic Ridge core, whether it be towards the Bermuda, towards the Azores, or even the strength of it is actually spread out from both points, because the Mid-Atlantic Ridge is measured between Bermuda and the Azores in terms of its strength. You can have sometimes the Azores branch stronger than the Bermuda side of things, and that can dictate where tropical cyclones go. If it's stronger over the Azores, there's a greater chance of recurving tropical cyclones mid to late season, and that could lead to a more dynamic and complex mid to late summer period for Western Europe. If we get tropical systems, that you need to have them developed first before you know where they're going to go. And if you've got a stronger Azores high, weaker Bermuda high, you've got more opportunity for those systems to turn over the western side of the Atlantic Basin. That could reinforce high pressure, leading to heat wave conditions and drought conditions over Western Europe. Equally, it can also enhance low pressure over Western Europe as well. So it could go both ways here. So if we happen to see a stronger Azores high, I've already explained that, so I'm not actually going to go through that any further. In fact, this, by the way, is the multi-model run. So this is the combination of ECM, Met Office, Meteo France, the CMCC, DWD, NCEP, JMA, ECCC. This is the 500 millibar projections of all these models combined for the June through August period. And you can see here that we've got a little bit of a lean towards higher pressure Europe extending into the UK and Ireland, possibly something lower in terms of pressure up towards Iceland and Greenland here, but it is very difficult to get a proper clear-cut signal from all these models for such a long period of time. We're talking about a 3-month period, but in terms of precipitation, this is interesting. Let's blow this up and you can see a little bit clearer, hopefully. In terms of all the models combining June through August, it's actually showing a drought signal here, a drier than average signal for much of Europe. UK and Ireland is average, wetter than average up towards Iceland here. That is essentially where my thinking is. Drier across the continent, wetter to the further north towards Iceland you go. This is obviously for the entire summer period. And in terms of warmer than average, firmly warmer than average is a very strong signal for warmer than average conditions. That is that. Let me know in the live chat what you've thought of that with regards to the ideas. I know it's long-winded. That's why I tried to give you the kind of pinpoint highlights first before going into the meat and bones of it. But I hope you've enjoyed that overall analysis in terms of what I think's going to happen and why I've got to this solution So you can let me know what you think of that. In terms of the hurricane season forecast, given the fact that this is part of the live today, is releasing my numbers for the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. Not got as much of a signal from the Pacific. It's ENSO neutral. We do have a warmer than average Atlantic, so therefore you have to factor that in. Man-Julian oscillation, by the way, I don't think is overly favourable for the Atlantic when you combine the entire period. But the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season numbers, this is what I think is going to happen. I think we're going to get 15 to 17 named storms, the average being 14.4. In terms of hurricanes, 6 to 8 hurricanes and 3 to 5 major Category 3 or greater hurricanes. That is the numbers that I've got, and I'll release the actual article this upcoming week on markvoganweather.com with regards to the reasoning behind it. I've kind of covered that even within the summer forecast, some of the thinking towards what's going on within the tropics here. Turbo Stream saying, well done, Mark. I will try and rewatch the bit I missed. Yeah, you could probably watch this back if you want to. There has been a lot in this live stream. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's been reasonably clear to understand, and the information has been presented in a fairly good way. I hope that's been the case. But I'm going to cut it there because I am a bit tired. I have to be honest with you. I've been working on this for a good part of today, and I've been working on it for weeks now as well. So we'll wait and see what actually takes place over the next 3 months. Remember, the June outlook will be released this upcoming week as well, given the fact that it's June 1st next Sunday. So that will be getting worked on. Pomo Drum, Richard Gray, we've had Frog's Legs Matthew, Turbo Stream, our moderators Paul James, Lindsay Vogan, and Sing Splint all tune in as well. We've got Craigie Boy, a massive thank you to the moderators, by the way, Richard Trott, Cal Potter. We've got, who else? I've said Frog's Legs Matthew, Turbo Stream, I've said already. Massive thank you to everybody for contributing on the live chat today. We've got Frog's Legs Matthew saying Indian Summer, Paul James saying cheers Mark, many thanks. We've got Poma Drum saying a favour, a backloaded summer with the best of the weather in August. That is an interesting one and very possible, by the way. Remember what I've said, there is lots of little parameters there that can alter, change and whatnot, and it becomes difficult the month of August here because you throw in the tropics. Last year, obviously, we had August, very, very quiet. The Man-Julian oscillation wasn't favourable. We had a lot of sinking over the Atlantic, a lot of rising motion over the West Pacific and the maritime continent. That's when we also had some very hot, dry conditions as well during that period of time. Great live stream, Mark. I'm glad I got back in time to watch it, says Frog's Legs. Matthew, thank you very much, Matthew. Greatly appreciate that. Richard Gray, great to get the detail today. It shows how much work is involved. And like I said, it may be a bust. It may not be. We will wait and see. Seafood Nita also tune in. Hi, Mark says them. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's stream. Keith Fletcher also on. Keith saying, sorry I'm late. We'll watch it later. Yes, do check out later, Keith. There is a lot to cover. The overall ideas were presented initially. Then I got into the little bit more technical stuff during the back half of the stream. We've got Craig Boyce saying, fantastic again. Mark, well done. Looks like it will be a barbecue weather. Yep, we will wait and see what happens. Anyway, I'm going to call it quits there. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great rest of your Sunday and weekend. And I will be back with the European Outlook as always tomorrow. Bye-bye.